Grand Rising family, it's Shay Seeking, and this is Not Your Mama's Bible Study, along with a little bit of his story lied. So, this is going to be a part 2 um, of I believe the title is going to be something like Bleeding Kansas, the town of Nicodemus versus uh, the blood of Christ. Um, yeah, I think it's going to be titled somewhere along those lines. And this is going to be part 2 of that segment. And I hope you guys enjoy. I will ask you to comment, rate, or subscribe, meaning like or dislike. And then also, if you'd like to join us on the Facebook group American Aborigines Unchained, or you can find me on Instagram with that same name. If it's not American Aborigines Unchained, it's going to be Shay Seeking on Instagram. I'm not 100% sure. So, again, I want to thank you guys for stopping by and thank you guys for your support and your comments. Some people did leave comments in the comment section, and I hope that sometime during the middle of the week I can stop and do and answer some of the questions that you guys have in the comment section. I don't want to make you think that your comments do not are not important to me, so I'm going to go ahead and address those at a later time. So, okay, I'm going to go ahead and let this play. Thank you guys again. Take care. So, let's see. Where were we at? Okay, African Americans to establish. Okay, so that sounds about right. This is why Obama had a chance to. They couldn't find one Aboriginal American. No, to be president, it was Obama that happened to be. Didn't even spend all his life here. He went to different places and was taught there. And I'm not saying all what he did may not be bad, but what I'm trying to say is we have to learn to discern. So at the same time, railroads needing to uh, populate the West to create markets for their service or their services. Exaggerated the qualities of the soils and climate in this Western Eden. So it's funny that they use that term Eden. Okay, again, that should make you think. Okay. you know, um, yeah, that should make you think. Okay. And this Gad's End or Gadsden flag really has me thinking, what is this town representing? If they're holding up that, I know that they were helped by the Osage. Okay, we're going to read about that next. Um, mm, mm-hmm. It's just so many things. At the same time, railroads needing to populate. Okay, in Western Eden. Okay. Mm, exaggerated the qualities of. Okay. Okay. At the same time, railroads needing to populate the West to create markets. Now we were just talking about these markets. Are these the same markets that we're talking about that were right here when Jesus came in and saw the merchants selling cattle and sheep and doves? Oh, see? Okay, all right, okay. Where were we just at? I know y'all gonna be getting upset with me. Mm, Let me say, okay, wild game and wild horses that could be tamed. And then here it says, in the temple area, he saw merchants selling cattle, sheep, and doves for sacrifices, and money changers behind their counters. And again, this guy, I think, was supposed this Nicodemus was supposedly sold for a bag of coins or money. Jesus made a whip of rope and scattered them. Okay. Scattering the money changers' coins all over the floor, turning over tables. Then going out Then going over to the men selling doves, he told them, "Get these things out of here. Don't turn my father's house into a market." Mm. So again, wild game, we that can be talking about some kind of birds. With just saying, okay, and I think that just is talking about something totally different. But yeah, that's what it reminded me of. Okay, okay. The desperate families of the South listened with rapt intentions, and in the late summer of 1877, 308 railroad tickets were purchased to take them to the closest railroad point in um, Ellis. And I'm looking at this at Ellis or Elias from the Bible with the A. Kansas, still 55 miles away from the families walked to, still 55 miles away. The families walked to Nicodemus, arriving in September 1877. Within 1 month of the first black child was born in Graham, Graham County to Mr. and Miss Henry Williams. I would like to know what his name was. Maybe we can find out what it was. Building homes along the Solomon River in dugouts, the original settlers found more disappointment and privation as they faced adverse weather conditions. In the promised land of Kansas, they initially lacked sufficient tools. Seed. I don't know if this is talking about like regular seeds or people to come and reproduce with or grow with. I don't know, because they were trying to recruit people. And again, when we're talking about biblical times, we're talking about the seed. You ain't talking about most likely you're not talking about a damn seed that you put in the ground, unless it's talking about seeds that semen planted in the ground or into her. Okay? Okay? Into her roots. Okay? You better recognize what slavery was about. A lot of it was about breeding. And money. So again, those small group of African males that they brought here, the 200, because most of the 250,000 in total brought here during the entire transatlantic slave trade would have been men, mostly men and young boys, because they had already ridden the land of the men or sent them off to war and die in the front lines. And then they also moved then these Africans in. And I don't have anything against these people today. They don't know. This is not their doing. This is the doings of other people. But I have to address it. Okay. I have to address it is what I'm saying. Okay. So, it's a part of the story. And just because they didn't tell us about it doesn't mean that it should not be talked about. Okay. So, and money. Okay. But managed to survive the first winter, some by selling buffalo bones, others by working for the Kansas Pacific Railroad. Okay. Yet others survived only with the assistance of the Osage Indians, who provided food, firewood, and staples. I don't know if it was stables or maybe it meant staples. Again, so if these Osage Indians were helping, sometimes when you help people out, you can get used or ran over. So it would be nice to know who these Osage Indians are. We'll look at it and what happened to them shortly after that. Because we cannot keep in our mind that there was only so-called lighter view people that did certain things to I'm telling you, when in the beginning, when God said, let the earth join with the earth, he was talking about a darker race joining with another darker race from another plane, another planet is what we found out. We could use that term. Okay. Not in the sky, but another portion of land. that these people were just foreigners. They came from somewhere else, not original to the land, but they were still earthlings, okay, from a different portion. So when you look at it that way, they had to bring someone in at some points in time that looked like the people in order for you to think that it's you. Same way they use these celebrities that share bloodlines with those same people to this day. That's why they're running back over there to Africa and finding themselves in these different places and things, because they know that they do have a connection to that. That's why they take their stuff like Oprah and place her schools over there in that land, because that is where they're really from. They know who they are and they know who you are. And they're here to give you the illusion of inclusion and let you think that they are who you are and you are who they are. And so they influence your community very heavily. And now we turn around and look at the fact that, yes, behind the scenes, there are the so-called big dogs in the industry, the usually older, supposedly Jewish men that are making money off of this. But at some point in time, you have to also look at the people that are doing it. And again, more people that I know, that I grew up with, yes, we might fight each other, we might have animosity, but the way I feel our soul and our spirit works is that and the reason why none of us really make it to that level in the industry, and that goes into a whole nother realm when we want to talk about the industry, but it's because you really wholeheartedly, if you had grandmas like I did, cannot see yourself doing something that is influencing your people in the wrong way. That would take the blood of someone else that has been privy to doing this already. And that's what they are here to do. That is their position. Okay? Infiltrate. Okay? So, and then till, okay? So this is all that, how they broke us up in order to till the land and reign, meaning like a king does, on the earth. And this is exactly what the Bible says. It didn't say on the waters, on the this and that. It said on the earth. Okay? So, though most stayed, many were disillusioned by the lack of vegetation. Okay? Again, produce. This could also be talking about vegetation, okay? But it said that it was in the wilderness, and it said we can look at what part of we can look at a map, a satellite view, and we can see how the landscape is for this area. That's what we can do. We can look at the landscape for this area and see what they're actually really talking about. Because a lot of times when they're talking about this, barren land, we could be talking about barren meaning they're not wanting to mix, or we could be talking about barren meaning it's like a desert land. But a lot of times I doubt that's the desert part is what we're talking about. You have to just watch carefully when you're talking about whatever else you're talking about. Okay, and the starkness of the land. Now, starkness, we're just going to look that up real quick. I think that was a port. Oh, I think I want to do this. I wanted to do genitive with you guys. Because when it said that water was genitive, hold on. I'm going to just look at it real quick to see if we already did it. I don't know if we did it in the other one. Because when we're talking about the whole thing of the waters, I think it was in number 1 or 2. And then it said the waters were genitive. I think I just took you through the genitive, the term waters in the concordance. I don't think I brought you over here. So I do want to read this real quick while it's on my mind, since it does pertain to something we've been looking into. So it says genitive. So when we looked at waters and we clicked the term water in the Bible Hub, it said that it's a genitive term, or is genitive. So that already struck me to look up genitive. And then it went into the facts of all the things that led us to think that still, that yes, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about waters, meaning other people's bloodlines, or amalgamation, or uh, creation, okay? Which is the story of their creation on top of a prior nation, okay? So genitive, late 14th century. Are we in the fourth day in Genesis? In reference to the grammatical case, genitive, genitus, origin, of or belonging to, birth, from genitus, past participle, to beget, produce. Okay, and again, I was telling you guys how produce and fruit and all this other stuff has something to do with Genesis, because again, we're talking about people in that Genesis 1, not animals and plants. That's not, it's not literally talking about ants, animals and plants. So give birth, beget, procreation, the familial or tribe groups. This word was misused by Latin grammarians, the general or generic case, expressing race or kind. Genikos, also meaning belonging to the family, from genos, family, race, birth, descent. The genitive case in grammar, 1610, is a mere blunder. Greek word genik could never mean genitive. Okay, if it meant to express the case of origin or birth. Again, not necessary, because you don't have to birth anything to beget it. So birthing can be the birthing of their ships on the land, okay? Or leaving their mothers and fathers' land and cleaving onto their wife, which would be America, okay? So they can have and hold it, okay? Have been called, okay, nor generic, okay, the relation of a son to a father, okay? For though we may say the son of the father, we may likewise say the father of the son. Okay, let's see. It meant causes generalis, the general case, or rather the case which expresses the genus or kind. This is the real power of the genitive. If I say a bird of the water, of, now it's funny that, ain't it funny how they use this term? If I say a bird of the water, which means probably, let's put it in this theoretical term for this channel. Spaniards, Germans of the waters that came here, or foreigners, okay, of the water, defines the genus to which a certain bird belongs, okay, fowl of the air. It refers to the genus of water birds, okay. Again, yeah, what it says, okay. Yes, okay. So anyhow, we were supposed to look at whatever this other term is while we're over here, starkness. And then I'll have to leave you guys for the day. Stiff. So are these the stiff-necked people that we're talking about? Are we, okay, strong. Mama? 1 second. Somebody called your phone. I'll get it. Rigid, obstinate, or yeah, I was going to say abstinence, but obstinate, stern, severe, hard, harsh, rough, violent, from the same root as stern, meaning utter, sheer, complete, first recorded in the 1400s, or the fourth day probably. Sense of barren. Oh, see, we're just talking about barren lands. See how this works, how the universe kind of does this? thing. And maybe, like I said, it's all in my head here that I'm thinking that I just thought of something, and it actually worked. You know what I'm saying? Maybe y'all just looking at me like I'm crazy, but it just, like, we just said this. Yeah, sense of bear or barren, in 1833. Again, 1831 was a time for Indian removal or exodus or whatnot. But this town was in 1877. So again, remember that these family lines, even we're talking about John Adams, Abraham Lincoln, John Brown, these bloodlines were here prior to all of this stuff and passing down their works through generations, just like the military. The men in the military, their sons went and their sons went, and so on and so on. Okay. But anyways, okay, so there we go with the barren land. Okay, so stiff, barren, okay, whatever. Okay, so the vegetation and the starkness of the land. And again, reading that, I feel like my spirit is leading me to say that they weren't producing a lot of either vegetation, if that's what you want to think, or people. So quickly returning to the green fields of Kentucky and Tennessee. Okay. So I'm not sure what I'm seeing here. Though most stayed, many were disillusioned by the lack of vegetation and the starkness of the land. Quickly returning to the green fields of Kentucky and Tennessee. So they left these areas and went back to the green areas. I don't know. Yes. Okay, I'm coming. Yeah, I know. Returning to green fields of Kentucky. And again, when we're talking about the green fields, are we talking about the grass from Genesis 1? Because the grass also could be speaking about, yeah, offspring in a sense. Because we really didn't have to call it green fields. They could have just said to the more something pleasant fields or something, but to use green fields, you know, that's something that is been placed there that they may think is going to fool you, but it makes me take a second look at it. Okay. And again, you can then, if you want to see what I'm trying to say, you would Google something like green, something like grass or greenery or whatever in the biblical text, and they'll give you like all the scriptures that have something to do with talking about grass, and then you can read them all together, and that way you could get kind of like a eyeball of, okay, if 90% of the time is talking about this, then why just this time are we supposed to think that it's talking about something else? Okay. Of those who stayed, the spring of 1878 brought hope and opportunity as the new settlers began to farm the soil. So, okay, as the new settlers in 1878, now I wonder who those new settlers were and what they looked like. Okay. Of those who stayed, the spring, offspring, and spring, yes, okay. But it doesn't say. See, look how it's worded. Of those who stayed, the spring of 1878. They could have said those who stayed until the spring. You know what I'm saying? Or up until the spring, or into the spring. But it just says of those who stayed, the spring of 1878 brought hope and opportunity as the new settlers began to farm. That's irrigate, plant, seed with the CEED, the soil. Hello. Again, the spring of 1878 brought hope and opportunity as the new settlers began to farm the soil. So again, you can think what you want to think, but I would like to see a closer up image of who this person is. And this totally looks like someone of a phenotype that is foreign to this land. She looked like she might be original. Who knows? And she kind of looked like she might be original, but maybe not. I don't know. He don't look. He look. I don't know. But again, that's just going off of what we are seeing on the surface. Okay, I'll have to look at these people and see who they are. The spring of 1878 also heralded more exodusters. Okay, so now more of those people came from the South, and local government was established, headed by President Smith. One woman arriving in spring, Williana Hickman, said years later of arriving at Nicodemus, when we got in sight of Nicodemus, the men shouted, "There's Nicodemus." Okay, being very sick, I hailed this news with gladness. I looked with all the eyes I had. What you mean? Because this might this remind me of you going somewhere with your friends or whatever. You never been. You don't know who these people is, or you already skeptical of one of these females or something. And so, but you going to support your girl, and when you come, you sizing the room up. You know what I'm saying? You looking at everybody, but you also opening up your, well, we might not have known it at that point in time, opening up your third eye or using your sensors and your senses to detect what's going on in the room. Even if it was a house party and it might be a shooting, you knew which exit. I'm the type of person to be standing in a certain, I'll be up against the wall. I mean, I dance, I guess, a little bit. But I'll be up against the wall, sometimes holding coats, and I'm already exercising my exits as soon as I walk in. So, I can feel her saying with all her eyes, kind of like even we're talking about Eve, when her eyes was open. We're talking about if her eyes was already open to see the fruit and touch it and grab it and do all this other stuff, then her eyes was not closed. That means that it might be talking about her third eye. That once she sees this stuff, she's going to witness something. There's going to be an awakening or a second wind, like we talked about in part 2, I think. And now her eyes were open to all of this. So again, she said, I used all the eyes I had. Okay. I said, where's Nicodemus? I don't see it. My husband pointed out various smokes coming out of the ground and said, that's Nicodemus. The families live in dugouts. The scenery was not at all inviting, and I began to cry. Despite the living conditions of their longing for the forested hills of Kentucky, Williana and her husband, Reverend Daniel Hickman, stayed, organizing the First Baptist Church in a dugout with a side structure above it. By 1880, a small one-room stone sanctuary had been erected. They didn't just say put up or built. They said erected. We're using more terms from Freemasonry or biblical, okay? At the same time, this structure evolved from limestone to stucco, and in 1975, a new brick sanctuary was built. Today, the church still stands in Nicodemus. Okay. Yeah. So anyhow, again, you guys can keep on reading it on your own, but I do have to go pick up my daughter. So I'm going to go ahead and end this now and come back with another part. It'll be shorter because it's not that much left, but I do have to leave like immediately. So again, thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up on the way out if you're enjoying the content, and go ahead and leave me a message too if you're enjoying what's going on here. Yeah.